Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck. I'm the mother of 4, previous foster parent, author, and I've been teaching parenting on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, for over 20 years. In this video, we're going to be talking about a behavior that is near and dear to my heart. It's honesty. We're going to be talking about how to teach kids to tell the truth. So I teach all about self-government. When a person is self-governing, that means they understand the cause and effect of any given situation, and they possess a knowledge of their own behaviors so that they can control them. So this person knows self-control. I started learning this back when I was young because I had a problem. My biggest vice that I had growing up was lying. I started lying when I was 6 years old, and no one really stopped me. I might have gotten caught a few times, but most of the time I didn't. I thought it was a virtue, and so I continued to lie. I lied to teachers, I lied to parents, I lied to grandparents, neighbors, friends. I even lied to myself sometimes. It became that habitual for me. So how did I overcome that tendency to lie? Well, I'm going to explain that to you, but I also want you to know that if lying can be conquered, you literally can conquer anything. Me overcoming the impulse to tell lies transformed my entire life. I chose to take control of all of my behaviors, and I knew after I conquered that behavior that there was nothing that I couldn't choose to change about myself. And true freedom comes when you are willing to change. So what was that key thing that I taught myself? So my friend, bless her heart, told me one day, Nicholeen, we all know you're a liar. We don't believe anything you say, and you should choose to tell the truth. Now, for years, I thought nobody knew I was lying. And then it hit me like a big wind. Oh no, I have no friends. They're just putting up with me probably because their parents say they have to be nice, but really nobody likes being with me because I lie, and they know that I lie. This hurt, but it was the best thing for me because I had been trying to conquer my lying habit for years. But at this point, at age 14 years old, when my friend told me that, I knew I had to fix it for good. So I went home and I thought, and I prayed, and I repented, and I tried to come up with a plan for how I could conquer this craving to lie. I lied to get attention. I lied to get out of trouble. I lied to be lazy. I lied for lots of different reasons. And I knew that almost every time I spoke, I was telling a lie. A lie would come out quicker than I even knew I was saying it. It was that automatic. And so how was I going to stop lying? I told myself as I was reasoning things out in my room that evening, maybe if I just stop myself from talking, then I won't lie again. And then I thought, how am I going to do that? I am a talker type person. I'm an extroverted type person. How could I stop myself from talking? But then I realized, wait, maybe that was a clue. What happens right before I want to talk? Well, I knew that right before I wanted to say something to get attention or to get out of trouble, there would be this little tiny feeling. It was a little craving in the pit of my stomach that would say, I want to say something. I want attention, or I want to cover this up. And so there would be this tiny, tiny craving. It was so fast, and it would happen right before I chose to say a lie. Or anything for that matter, even the truth. So if I could stop myself at the moment I felt that craving, so right before talking, then I had a chance. Maybe then I could stop myself from lying. So that's what I did. I made this plan. This plan included a skill set. Now, I am known for my skill sets all over the world. In fact, my books talk about them, my courses. That's what teaching self-government teaches. In fact, if you don't know about teaching self-government and about the skills that we teach parents and children that are literally life-changing, you're going to want to go to teachingselfgovernment.com and make sure that you get all of that information. Many of the parenting things I teach on my website revolve around skill sets. So it's a skill that has different steps attached to it. Well, the first skill set I ever made for myself was the skill set how to control the impulse to lie. I didn't label it that skill set, but I found out later when I did foster care that there was an actual skill set called that, and that I had created it for myself without even knowing that that was a labeled skill set that you could teach somebody. I was amazed. So what was my skill set I created for myself at age 14? My skill set was this: recognize. Step number 1. What was I going to recognize? That little feeling, that little craving that I wanted to say something. Stop would be step number 2. So I tell myself, stop. Don't say anything yet, right? So I'm going to hold off. This requires teaching myself patience. So stop, step number 2. Then step number 3, analyze. Ask myself a question. The question I chose to ask myself was, is this the truth? If the answer was yes, that it was the truth, then I gave myself permission to say exactly what the truth was. But if I did not find that what I was about to say was fully true, then I told myself I would have to walk away. So that was my plan. So I decided to recognize I wanted to say something, stop myself, which oftentimes even included taking a little mini step back. Then asking myself, is this the truth? Then acting deliberately. That's step number 4, saying exactly what the truth was. Well, or walking away. That's my deliberate action, one or the other, depending. And then the final step was to report. So I was going to report to myself in my journal and see how I did each day on my interactions. I would praise myself or recommit to doing better the next day. Now, here's something about lying. You don't get done with a lying habit immediately. So let's talk about what you can do before that lying habit goes fully away and before the person chooses to really hone in their skill set of how to control the impulse to lie. So as you're working with your children and maybe you've noticed that they are lying, now you're going to want to teach them that skill set that I just mentioned, but maybe there is something else that needs to happen first. And that something else is usually a really heartfelt conversation. So in the teaching self-government parenting system, we have different teaching styles or ways that we teach the children depending on what type of a lesson is needed. So the type of parenting teaching style that you would want to use at this time is what I call a parent counseling session. A parent counseling session is that time where you have a conversation just about one item. So you have the child have a special one-on-one with you. Maybe you're driving in a car and it's really casual. Maybe you're just having a little popsicle on the porch. Or maybe you're just saying, hey, come here, I want to talk to you about something for a minute. But you need to discuss with them what you're seeing. If you're seeing lying, it's got to come out. Don't call it other things. Don't say telling stories, exaggerating. Use the word dishonest behavior because it's dishonest. Even say the word lie. Say, you know what? Everybody experiments with lies at one point or another, and I've noticed that you've been doing some lying lately. There was this lie that happened. We discussed it, but then the next day there was this lie that happened. And then we discussed that, but it seems like we're having a perpetual problem. So I feel like we need to make a plan for how to conquer the lying behavior that you're struggling with right now. So don't make it seem like it's part of their personality, that they have a mark on their character, somehow they're totally immoral. Nothing heavy like that. Just say this is just an issue that people have to deal with, and let's make a plan for how you're going to deal with that. So then one of the things that you're going to share with them is that it is a boundary line you don't cross. Telling a lie is like crossing over a line that makes you actually feel uncomfortable a little bit, especially at first, but it also makes the other people around you feel uncomfortable. Most most people know when you are telling a lie, as evidenced by my story when I didn't know. All my friends were knowing that I was a liar, but for some reason no one corrected me for years. That was so sad. I went on lying and developing some sort of a skill that I thought was useful, when in reality it was hurting all of my relationships. So you're going to want to talk about that kind of stuff with your children, and you're going to want to mention to them how this is a no answer, or a line that we don't cross. In the Teaching Self-Government Parenting program, we talk about accepting no answers. This is a really great skill to teach. It's one of the 4 basic skills for self-mastery. And so they're going to know what that means in my family if I tell them that they are not supposed to cross over that line of lying because it's a no answer. They'll also know immediately how I would correct that, because they know how we correct a person for not accepting a no answer. But if you want to go a step further and teach them that skill set that I created for myself when I was 14, then go ahead. And on that report step, you can have them report back to you so that you can praise them and acknowledge when they've done a really great job at choosing not to lie, or choosing to control that impulse to lie. One thing that you're going to want to decide with them, it's really a good idea to even ask them their input on it, is what kind of a negative consequence or positive consequence are we going to be utilizing to help the person be motivated to recognize cause and effect and conquer this impulse to lie. So I have a lot of teaching that I do on negative consequences and positive consequences. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but it's vital that you come up with one that is not something that makes the person feel awful or that is a power struggle type thing, but something that actually gives them hope, moves them forward, but still also teaches them cause and effect so that they can learn self-government. Lying is something we absolutely can conquer. And I know that the skills that we've talked about and the planning that we've talked about in this video is going to give you the edge you need. This video has been so much fun because it's been personal about my life. If you like learning things like this, give me a comment down below. I would love to hear about your experiences with maybe conquering lying too. And if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to watch the next video, which is how to teach children to respect their parents.